Welcome to Tori's Tea Time Talk with God. Part 1 of Genesis 2:11 through 14. Good morning and welcome to Tori's Tea Time Talk with God. We are in Genesis chapter 2 verse 7, and the tea that I am drinking today is green tea from Mount Kilimanjaro. I've already shared this tea with you, and I decided to do, the green tea today because it's full of antioxidants. I could have done something more fun and definitely more aromatic, such as the hibiscus, but the strawberry hibiscus. But I decided to do the Kilimanjaro green tea, which is a very nice, as we would put it in Africa. I like saying it that way, as we would put it in Africa. It's very nice. So anyway, back to the scripture at hand. If you recall, in our last session, we were discussing Genesis 2:4 through 7 concerning how the earth received its water and how the herbs received their nutrients in that process, and how they did not receive their nutrients, because at this point, not their nutrients, but did not receive their help, is through Adam and Eve, because they were not on the earth at the time that this was put in place, as they were created on day 6, and water day 2, and herbs day 3. So everything happened in the sequence it needs to happen for what was essential for what was next. The water was going to be essential for the herbs. The sun would then be needed, and moon and stars and all those sorts of things, because anyone who does planting, and particularly by a farmer's almanac, the planetary signs that God had given us on day 4 are not just the guiding light for knowing your compass where you are, but it's also essential to providing whatever you need on the earth to make things grow, to make things function as they ought to function. And Jehovah God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And Jehovah God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put Alephtah, the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made Jehovah God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Okay, and so here we are. We're finding out more details about how God formed man. So now we're on day 6, and God is telling us how he formed man. In Genesis 1:26 to 27, he tells us that he created us in his image and likeness, but he doesn't tell us details like how we were created in his image and likeness, or how our physical construct was put together. But in Genesis 2:7, we get that information, that man was formed of the dust of the earth. So that word dust is afar, which is Aleph Pei Resh. Now Aleph, and let's look at that in the ancient Hebrew, and if I can zoom that in because it's way too small. Okay, so Aleph Pei Resh. This is not Aleph, excuse me, it is not Aleph, y'all, it's Ayin. This is an ayin. The ayin is an I sound, but it kind of has the S sound. S sound, so you can easily sometimes get the two mixed up. But an ion, which is easy to remember because think of I and then put an N on the end of it, and you have ion, is a picture of an eye, which means to see or to know. Pe is the picture of a mouth, which is, that's what it means. Mouth, speak, things associated with your mouth. And chew. And then there's the resh. The resh is the picture of a man's head, which has to do, of course, with what happens in the head of any human being, which is where your brain, so where your thoughts are stored, and so forth, where all that neurology takes place. So 25, 65, N. So we go here and we see it occurs 110 times. It's 6083, which is the number we're looking for. Okay, so an abundant amount of powdery substance as dust or ash. So this is what we are made of. That's why from the dust we came, and to the dust we will return. Right? So this is how God formed mankind. And in that should tell us some things about when we start getting to the place where God is saying that He's created every herb yielding seed after its kind, that it is for us for food. Well, we then understand a greater revelation concerning that, because herbs, all of these things come from the ground, and the things that we are made of are the things that were permissible for us to eat. And even if you look at it from the molecular or the cellular level, the structure or the molecule of there's only one distinct difference between that which comes from a plant and that which comes from us. Isn't that fascinating? It's like a lock and key. It's like God said, here's the key to your wellness. Here's the key to your health. And us having that which comes from where we come from has a beneficial effect in our bodies. I mean, when you get on the health kick and just the wisdom of the Most High, it's a whole nother level to this that many of us don't even consider. I remember one time, because everything is in the creation week. This is why I spend so much time on it. Even if you look at living and eating healthy according to scripture, and I did a whole seminar actually on this, is in the creation week. It's in the creation week. What you need to be well, to be disciplined, and to and to stay healthy. It's all there. So literally, when He says He declared the end from the beginning, you can take that to the bank. That's exactly what He did. So, and Jehovah God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there He put the man whom He had formed. And so, as we go down, and I think we did discuss some of this, we recognize that the name of the, no, we didn't. This is a study I did for today. So, and out of the ground made Jehovah God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into 4 heads. The name of the first, now before we go any further, I want to stop there a little bit and take another pause for the cause and look at that verse 9 again. Oh no, we're going to keep going. we'll deal with that later because that's not where he mentions. But we're going to deal with that tree when we get to it in verse 17. So we're going to keep reading. The name of the first is Pison. That is it, which compasseth the whole land of Havilah. And so I did some research on what these names mean. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. I did not set my clock, so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm probably more at 27 minutes. Okay, so the name of the first is Pison. That is it, which compasseth the whole land of Havilah. So I did some investigation, if you will, because names in the Bible mean something, and a lot of times it's like the missing link or the clear understanding of what God is revealing. So we don't want to just dismiss it. Now, what I will tell you is in the ancient Hebrew lexicon, they do not have words that are pronouns in scripture. So names of places and things like that you will not be able to find in the ancient Hebrew. So we're just going to look at the resources that are available that will give us information on that front. And we have the Brown Driver's Bridge, which says Pison means increase. That is what the meaning of the word is. Now, we can, according to this, though, get the ancient Hebrew characters, which I'm excited about because that's something that I can read. So we have the Pei again, which is the mouth. We have the Yod, which is the arm. And the association with the arm is what you do with the arm. And it's the whole arm. In other words, it's not. You have Kaf, which is another Hebrew character. That's the hand, which is the palm of the hand. But then you have the, as far as in Hebrew, what means hand goes all the way up the elbow. It's not just the elbow and then out to the hands. It's up the elbow and then out to the hands, right? So we have Pei, we have Yod, we have Sheen, which is to consume. We have Vav, which is to establish. Is to establish. And then we have Nun, which is the seed. So we have the mouth that works to consume the established seed. And that's really how you get your increase, because he says that if a man doesn't work, neither shall he eat. In other words, there's some work that has to be put in, which goes back to what I said in the previous session, that God's plan for man, which is very clear, the fact that he said there was not a man to till the ground, is that he had work to do. It wasn't like he was just going to be sitting around eating and everything was just going to constantly be a stretch of things being given without him having to do anything for those things to continue to provide or to give. God was going to instruct him what his work was. He was his king, his source, Most High was. And so he was going to tell him, how this is how this works. You know, think of it like if we've gotten away from an agricultural society, but people who grew up in agricultural societies, their children were their workers. You know, this wasn't considered like a sweatshop, or this wasn't considered to be wrong to have your children work and not pay them anything and things like that. You know, now you have child labor laws that would try to tell you can't do that. You know, that's slavery. No, it's not. Because guess what? The children are going to benefit from whatever grows out of that garden. It's a built-in system of family sharing with family and passing down wisdom. It's no different than an apprenticeship, except it's apprenticeship with even more benefits, because it's going to go from the farm to your table. I mean, if that's the case, then I guess a woman who is cooking, a mother who's cooking, would be a slave to her family. She's not getting paid a check. She's not getting paid fiat money for doing what she's doing. I mean, the purpose of money is to buy what? Food. If you're growing your food, and you're picking your food so it can be eaten, then you're a part of the process of what the purpose of money is. Purpose of money is just not to have money, and is to provide. The money is a means of transfer so you can buy the things that you need or want. And since food is a need, having kids have to help you work in the field, having to, having to milk cows, having to, pick eggs from chickens, having to put feed out for chickens. These things were just a part of what helped a family to come afloat, because who can afford to pay someone outside of the household? A lot of people didn't have that kind of money. So what they had instead, they had large families made of built-in workers. And so what do we have the picture of? Of not just built-in workers, but built-in entrepreneurs. Because the skills that they were going to acquire in gardening, in tilling, in tending to, in serving the ground that they were going to get their food source from, was also a skill that could provide for their needs and the needs of their family when they get older. So this was a transfer of information. The parents, just like God, would tell the kids or show the kids, this is how you do this. And the kids, in return, if they don't understand something, guess what they're going to do? They're going to ask their parents questions. How many of us know that kids can ask you 1,001 questions? And not necessarily that because they're trying to get out of doing something, but because they're trying to learn and understand how things work. This is the ongoing conversation that God would have had with a matured man, Adam, who was fully grown, created from the dust of the ground. He would have had these questions. And God would have been there to answer them. So it was him working in concert with God to tend to the creation that God has put in place and given him dominion over. Okay, so now getting back to these 4 rivers. So that increase, that is it which compasseth, and we see that Aleph Tav, which we discussed before, which is so vitally important, because the Aleph Tav is Yeshua. Because in the beginning was the Word, and who's the Word? He's the Aleph Tav. He's the Alpha Omega. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And there was nothing made that was made without him. So now, it makes sense when you're seeing this Aleph Tav next to things as being done in strategic places throughout Scripture. So Pison, that is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah. So what is the land of Havilah? Havilah, which is a het, not a het. So it's more of a het. So the Havilah, it means circular. Or you can think of it like a cycle, but circular. So the name of the first increase, that is it which compasseth, which is like a circle, the whole land of circular, Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium and the onyx stone. Now, I submit to you, oftentimes we think of, things like gold and bdellium and onyx stones as things that are not essential to our survival or our living. And, there are people who don't have gold and they're still alive. So there is evidence of that as well. However, I think it's significant that of the 4 rivers that God created, of the 4 heads from that one river that went out of Eden, that the first one is increase, and the increase is connected to a circle that is filled with gold and precious stones. I mean, there's a message in that. Because I look at things as, God prioritizes things in a certain way for a reason. There's an order to things. And so what's the significance? I'm not saying I have the answer to it, but I'm saying there's a significance to the fact that the first one, that this is what the first head of the river that he mentions is, this is what's associated with it. That the association with it has to do with the gold and the bdellium and the onyx stone. So anyway, and the name of the second river is Gihon, or Gihon, which is stream. So, and the name of the second river is stream. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. So now we have Cush. Now, of course, it don't sound nothing the same, right? But Cush, as we know later on, because at the point that this is named Cush, there are no Cushite people. There's Adam and there's Eve. But what we can measure from this is that the location of where the Garden of Eden is, we are given enough details that if we can find out where this river Pison is, or where Havilah is, which, we don't know of any places today I don't know of any places today that are called Havilah, but if we can locate where that is, and we do know where Ethiopia is. Now, the dispute over Ethiopia would be whether or not Ethiopia, what we call Ethiopia today, whether or not it was larger than that in biblical times. And when you look at the map, it does tend to indicate that. And we can look at some Bible maps, and I gotta admit I did not do that, to see if the Bible maps reveal to us where Havilah was in relationship to, Havilah clearly was a circle. It's something that should be easy to identify, because either that river took form of a circle, or something of that nature, but it's circular. So there's something about a circle that is associated with it. Now, of course, today that could be hard to find because it's a river. It could have dried up. There's a whole lot of things that could have happened since then. So you can't necessarily derive anything specifically from that. Okay. Let's see if this map basically has Israel. And this map is not going to have the places that we would need to be able to determine where this is. So let's look at the world map. Okay, so now we have a picture of Africa. So all these are resources that are accessible to you within the Bible app. So a person would not have to have access to the internet to conduct a Bible study. You just would have to have time and take the time to do it. So of course when you zoom out, unfortunately it does make it a little hard to see, but this seems more like a more recent map. Yeah, so only thing you can see right here is this is Ethiopia. Now there are maps that I looked at that show pictures of Ethiopia that are much larger than this. And that's important to look at. Mm. Okay, so let's see. Ah, drop down button. More resources. How about that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so nope, this is not what I need. Let's see if we can find what I need. Most of this is going to be New Testament maps. What we're looking for. Yeah. Now, if we can get all the way to Central America, certainly we can get Africa. Somewhere in here. So, the partition of Africa. Okay. So yes, this still doesn't really give us the information that we need. So as you can see, it takes time to really conduct an intense study on things, but I'm glad that you're able to take this journey with me, because you need to know how to do that, and you need to know what resources are accessible to you. And so again, this is a free resource, eSword, that I'm using here. And again, if you needed to have maps, they have a graphic viewer that shows you all these different maps, which is still, you know, very good resources. Now this isn't the map we need. We need a map of Africa, but an ancient map of Africa. It's historical, but this isn't really historical enough, because this is more or less dealing with things that are way more recent than what we're looking for. We're talking about going back to the beginning. So at the very least, we might be able to get back to the very beginning, but we can get closer than something that would be associated with mostly more current events, like during the New Testament times. And so therefore we're not going to necessarily find what we need. Okay, so that being the case, we're going to go to I'm done. Okay, so these Bible resources are not going to help you. These are basically more like extra biblical books on different topics. Thank you for listening to Tori's Tea Time Talk with God. Shalom.